Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. We're going to be talking about designing for psychological safety. So, using design thinking as a way to help everybody feel safe. And so, we're going to be talking about in this video the design challenge. What does that mean? What are some examples and what does that do? Along with empathize and diving deep into that. Those are different areas or different parts of the design thinking process. So let's get started. So, a design challenge. What exactly is it when we're talking about having a design challenge? Well, before we work to create psychological safety, we want to understand what are the challenges that are going on, things that help us know that people aren't feeling really safe, right? So, if you're trying to make it a more safe experience for your staff, maybe your customers, if you work in mental health at a nonprofit, or maybe other stakeholders in your community. If you're like, let's say, in a hospital and you have other programs that you work with. And so you want to really look at what are the challenges, these issues that we're experiencing that help us understand that we're not feeling psychologically safe, and these things that we could focus on to really make a change for. And so an example might be high turnover. I've worked with a few organizations that have had a lot of high turnover, and this is a really good example where that might be an indicator where people don't feel safe. When I don't feel safe enough to kind of share who I am or to challenge ideas, then I'm probably going to look for somewhere else to go. And so that's an indicator. Another indicator might be that people call out a lot, where people are just calling out all the time because they're sick. Well, maybe it's because they don't really feel comfortable in the space, so they don't really want to be there. Another example is people are staying quiet in their meetings. People aren't really talking, they're not engaging in the meetings. We see this a lot on Zoom and other forms of virtual collaboration. And so people might not feel comfortable speaking up in that space. Another example is people aren't being really honest about the challenges that they have or maybe mistakes that they made. They might feel scared because of the negative consequences that might happen, where they're told that they're bad, they're wrong, they look dumb, or what are they doing? Can't believe you're doing something like that. So another example might be people don't actually challenge one another. People aren't disagreeing with ideas because they're afraid of the blowout that might happen. Or people push against something that might be a new idea, right? So people might push against that because they're scared of the change. They don't feel safe about change happening because that might mean they lose their job. If you see like there's a lot of low morale and people just are disinterested in working with one another. So these are all challenges that you or your team might be experiencing to help show that people aren't feeling really comfortable. They're not opening up to one another. They're not really getting to dive in. And so this is what you want to do when you're using design thinking for psychological safety, is really trying to understand what is the main challenge, the main issue we see that's happening here, right? And the more that you can understand people and the challenges that they face, the safer people feel, because it shows that you understand them when you really get a good sense of this. Now, the design challenge, this isn't going to be generally not the main thing we focus on throughout the whole process, but it is a starting point. So it gives us a good place to focus. And it's almost like a goal that we're going towards. And it also helps us know that when we're making movements on this, that we're making progress. So you want to start off with a really clear as possible, a design challenge. What is the thing that we see is the problems, the issues, the areas where people don't feel psychologically safe, so that we have a good starting point of what to really focus on. And so that's the design challenge. Now, the next part is going to be the empathize phase. Empathize is where we're really looking to try to understand, where are people at? How are they feeling about what's going on? And you're trying to empathize your user, whoever it is that you're working with, right? Or trying to solve this problem for. So if it's your staff, that's who you're going to try to understand as best as you can. If it's for your clients, then you're going to try to do as much as you can to understand them. And a lot of it is really learning people's experience with particular scenarios. And so there's a thing called user research. Now, user research is meant to, again, help us understand what's going on. And so if we're doing user research, we might look at, where are the areas that people don't feel safe? We're trying to understand what causes them to not feel safe. So maybe at a meeting, they don't feel safe because every time they speak up, someone shuts down their idea or belittles them or tells them they're dumb or that's a worthless idea. So it helps us understand, in what scenario do people not feel safe and what's causing people not to feel safe. Then in the user research, when you're trying to understand and empathize with these people, you also want to understand what's important to them. What matters in the meeting? What do they really care about in the meeting? And what would they like to ideally happen in the meeting? What would be a really cool experience for them to have? So allowing them to kind of imagine and kind of go and be really creative about what they would really like in the meeting. So that's what you really are trying to understand at broad strokes when you're trying to empathize with these people who aren't feeling safe. Where are they not feeling safe? Why don't they feel safe? What's important to them? And also, what would they actually like to have happen? So we try to understand that. Now, the ways in which we can understand that vary. And each different way is going to give you more information, and some will give you less information. So, for example, surveys. Surveys are a great tool to kind of understand more metrics than trying to get into the emotions of what's happening. If you're trying to get into the emotions of what's happening, surveys is not going to really give you that. What surveys can do is give you more information. So standard information that's very clear. So for example, how many meetings do you go to a day? How many meetings do you go to a month? How many times did you call out sick over the past week? How many times? So you want to get kind of numbers and metrics and that general information. Or can you tell me about what's the steps you go through when you're going to go to a meeting, right? So getting that kind of basic information is great for surveys, but it's not going to give you really deep information. But surveys are often a great place to start when you don't really know what you're really looking for. So using a survey is a great starting point. The next thing you can do is what's called observations. So if people aren't feeling safe in a meeting, be kind of like a fly on the wall and observe what's going on in a meeting. Take down as many notes as you can. And you're not there to interrupt. You're just there to observe and be curious about what happens. And that's kind of neat when you get to see what's happening in real life. So you get a sense of the person's actual experience. So wherever they don't feel psychologically safe, if you have the opportunity to observe, that's a great thing you can do. And that gives you more insight to their experience. Now, a third thing you can do is actually do interviews. Interviews are fantastic. And this is where you can start diving deep into people's experiences. What was that like for you? How did that feel? Why did it feel that way? What would make you feel excited about going to meetings? And then you get to see their response. You get to hear what they're saying. Again, in this space, you're just being curious. You're just trying to understand what's really going on for this person in this space. So we want to make sure that we try to help understand, why don't they feel psychologically safe in this space? And one of the ways or things to be mindful about when you're doing research, be careful about power dynamics in the space. So if you want to do interviews, but the boss is there, well, probably they don't feel comfortable to be as open as possible. So you want to make sure that you're being aware of the power dynamics. And also, as someone's coming in to interview someone, it could also be a little intimidating. So you let them know, hey, I'm just here to collect the information, but you're the expert. You're the one that has all the knowledge, all the experience, and I'm here to learn from you, right? Really lifting them up and letting them know that you don't have power over them, that you're just trying to be curious. You also want to try to create as much comfort as you can, helping them feel comfortable and safe to open up. So maybe you might want to do an interview at a closed off space so that there aren't other noises going on and other people and distractions and all the things. Just try to think about when you're interviewing someone, just ask the question, what can I do to make this person feel comfortable? Right. And one of the ways you could do that is also sharing your intent about what you're trying to do. Let them know that, hey, you're here to try to understand what they're saying. And what you're trying to do is really get a good sense of their experience. And what you're going to do with that is digest that information and then see if they could start creating a better experience for them. If they could change the world that they live in so it aligns more of what would make this person feel more safe. And then obviously the final thing that you generally want to do is keep things anonymous. To keep it very hush hush. They don't need to know every person and what they're thinking. They just need to get a general sense of the information that you're collecting. And again, just while you're talking to these people, be curious. Don't judge, don't do any of that stuff. Just be really curious about what's going on for them, trying to really understand them as best as you can. Then when you get all that awesome information, when you've done all your user research, when you dove in and tried to understand as best as you can, it's like, now what do we do with this information? Well, the next part is now to turn that information into knowledge. And you're trying to get insights. Insights are aha moments or things that really stuck out about the research that you're done. One of the easiest ways to do that is by putting up all the information that you have and start clustering them into common themes that might be going on. So if, let's say, you did a whole bunch of interviews with a bunch of staff members for a particular meeting, you can see that a lot of stuff, people are talking about people cutting each other off a lot, right? Or you might see a lot of themes of people putting down each other's ideas. So you want to start looking at all the information and putting them in groups so that the kind of themes come out, and then you could start seeing those are the insights. These are the things that you can actually now learn from the information. What you do is you look back at your original design challenge. In that, a lot of times the design challenge is a lot of times the symptoms of what's going on, not necessarily the root issue of what's going on. So with the user research that you now have, you can get a better understanding or a better sense of what's actually the issue, what's actually the problem. And so you can update your design challenge, right? Now you have a much better sense of what you're really looking to solve. And so that's the beginning parts of using design thinking to create psychological safety in the workplace. I hope that this was really helpful. And just so you know, we have a free resource for you all. Down below in the link, in the comments, and there's a link there that you can click on, and we have a really great free resource to help you and your team build more psychological safety in the workplace using a lot of the principles of the design thinking. So I want to just say, I hope that this was really helpful for you. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and have a great day.